Hey guys, come along with me today to treat a patient with PDO lifting threads. This patient came in and she had concerns about her nasolabial folds, marionette lines, and jowls. She was concerned about how heavy the tissue looked and just wanted to age gracefully. She has some big events coming up in her life within the next couple months, so she just wants a nice, lifted, refreshed look. So today we treated her with some molded Arte 18 by 100s in the mid face. We cleansed the area and kind of drew up our vectors. So we drew up the vectors to aim towards those areas that she's most concerned about. So nasolabial folds, marionette lines, jowls. We kind of just looked at her and assessed her and kind of planned out how many threads we were going to use to get the best look. So during this procedure, we cleansed the area. We numbed her with some Lido and Epi, just with a little sub-Q needle. And then we inserted a pilot hole. This pilot hole allows us to insert our cannula and our threads with less resistance and allows us to numb the track that the threads are going in. So as you can see, we made that pilot hole. Now I'm going in with a cannula through each of those tracks. This is lidocaine 2%. We're kind of just checking the tissue as we go and are looking at our depth. You should be able to see the outline of the cannula, but you don't want to see the color of the cannula or of the needle. So we're going through, checking our depth, making sure we're going to that nasolabial fold. Personally, we don't like to treat past the nasolabial fold just because sometimes that fold there gives the thread a hard time while it's laying. That's a very much an animated part of your face. So that thread can poke through the tissue or just cause the patient more discomfort. So therefore, I personally don't treat past it. You still get a great result treating to the nasolabial fold. Here I'm going through all of the other tracks as well. As you can tell, I'm kind of tapping the patient's skin with my finger just to kind of ensure that I like my depth and tenting up. I'm pushing 2% lidocaine, never more than 0.5 in each track. That's just because we don't want to overfill the area with fluid and give her a more swollen look. We're still giving the same effect of numbing the area, but we just don't want it to look swollen and puffy before we treat. So here I'm still numbing those tracks. As you can see, I'm pushing a little bit of lidocaine as I'm retrograding in each one of those tracks just to make sure the patient is numb and this procedure is comfortable for her. A lot of patients come in and they're nervous about this because it looks very invasive and looks like it is going to hurt a lot. But little do they know that our numbing really makes this procedure tolerable. If they're ever uncomfortable in a procedure like this, it's usually because you're too deep or superficial with your depth. So that's something to look for and check out. This is one of the most invasive procedures that we do in aesthetics, but because we numb, it is tolerable. And I always encourage patients, if they're looking into it, to go for it because it leaves such amazing results. So here I'm inserting my cannula with my thread in it. As you can see, I'm using the same technique of tapping my finger on the patient's skin, tenting up, and making sure I'm in the right plane and depth. If you see more than 2 hands here, it's because Elizabeth is helping me and she's assisting me doing these threads. Once I get to the place where I want to go, I pull traction back up on that tissue and slowly remove that cannula. I'm just lifting up that tissue to where I want it to be as I'm retrograding that cannula out. On the next thread, what I like to do is I like to pull up on the thread I just placed and insert it behind it. It's much easier for entry. I personally like to keep all my threads in until the end and then cut, but everybody has a different personal preference. So once again, I'm kind of just moving my cannula through that track. I made that track already with my lidocaine, so it's already there and it shouldn't be giving me too much resistance. If I am, it's usually an indication that you're in the wrong plane of tissue or that the patient has amazing collagen. If you're running into those tight spots that are hard to pop through, it could be a ligament, it could be great collagen production, truly dependent on the patient, and every patient's going to be different. So personally, I really love these threads. I think they give an amazing look to a patient's aesthetic. It really makes them just look refreshed and kind of gives the appearance of a mini facelift without anything being too dramatic. Patients love this procedure because it gives them one instant results of an instant lift right afterwards. Everyone notices a difference. And then also down the line, it helps the patient produce their own collagen. And that has long-term benefits as well. So overall, this procedure, I highly recommend. It is something that gives you immediate results and long-lasting results, which we love in aesthetics. Here I am inserting that last thread in that mid-face. This one was a little bit tougher just because you already have 3 threads in the point of entry. So you might battle with it a little bit more. I also battled with this one only because her tissue on the side of her face was not very dense. So I really struggled to get in the right plane. If you ever have a problem getting into the right plane, you could always attach a syringe to the cannula, and that allows the thread to be locked in place so you can back up in the track. Obviously, if you do not have a syringe attached to the cannula, you cannot backtrack because those threads will engage. So if you do need to backtrack, that's perfectly okay. Just add a syringe to it, hold that thread into place, and you could back up and make sure you're in the right plane. Here I am just kind of using an alcohol pad to kind of make sure I'm pushing down on those threads and that they're engaging. I like to cleanse those entry holes that we entered through, get all of that marker off, and also apply pressure at the same time. As you can see, I'm pushing pressure both directions. During this time, it's very important to educate your patient that they might hear some popping or feel some popping. That's completely normal. It's just those threads engaging, and that can happen up to 2 weeks after. Now I'm placing some Band-Aids over those holes just to kind of protect them. I always tell the patient to leave them on the majority of the day if they can. Obviously, if they get gross or soiled, definitely take them off. But here she is looking at the results, and she loves them. Thanks for coming along.